Hey Addicts, welcome back to another comic review, and boy is it good to be back. It feels like we've been waiting forever for this second issue, but it's finally here. So let's talk about TMNT, The Last Ronin, and oh my gosh, does Raphael look so cool. Just going full beast mode into a pile of foot ninja there for the cover. Man, so I think this one's about the same length as the first issue, and we're just going to dive in, talk a little bit about it, maybe recap a little bit, give you my opinion, and, you know, talk about how good the issue was. Before I get anything, let me just say I will be going over spoilers, so just keep that in mind if you haven't read the issue and you're wanting to stay completely spoiler-free before we talk about things. But let's jump right into it. So we open up with April waking up from what appears to be a nightmare, and then also her getting herself around, and as it's doing that, flashing back and forth, we get to see a look at the past and kind of the night that shaped everything. And we get some information that Casey and April were going to be engaged and they were going to reveal it to the guys, but on their way to this party that they set up, the Turtles got ambushed by the Foot, and Splinter ended up being mortally wounded, which led to them having to try to operate and save him. And we don't really get Splinter's fate necessarily in the flashbacks for this issue, but we do get to see that Raph, as you know, playing the hothead as he usually does, is not going to wait to take the fight to the Foot and especially get revenge on Karai for what she's done. So that kind of jumpstarts the session of flashbacks for this issue. But as we're seeing April get around, even without seeing exactly what happens to her in the past in this issue, we already see the price that she's already partially paid with, you know, a bunch of scars, missing limbs, so we know that it's bad. And I think in a lot of ways there's, you know, obviously a sadness, but you just, there's this like grief and dread of like, oh, what exactly happened to get to that point? So I think it already leads to a very good build-up for when we're going into the flashback sequences. There is a moment before we get a look back at Mikey where April kind of seems like she's losing it because maybe it's because I'm just assuming the worst for most of these characters, because we haven't, I guess, have a confirmation that Casey is alive or dead at the start of the second issue, but I just assume that Casey's dead, and right off the bat we have April, when she's getting out of bed, asking Casey for a little help, and the only thing we can see in the panel is Casey's hockey mask and, you know, his weapons. And so it makes you like the kind of a misleading shot that like, oh, maybe April's gone a little crazy over the years, right? Which I do kind of like that, you know, letting you guess a little bit there. But then we get to see a little bit, like I said, at Mikey and him recovering from his wounds, which is, he's doing really good, which I do love the kind of the quick explanation of why exactly that is, that his or not the mutagen, but like just his genetics have, I guess, continued to mutate to the point where he's becoming stronger, he's healing faster. So I think that's a cool element to work on anyway for like the Turtles if they ever want to do a session where they're older, but also just you know, a nice little way for them to explain some things pretty fast. But one of the best things that I think they illustrated very well in the first issue, and they carried in here, and I continue to like it, is the fact that Mikey has severe PTSD from everything that's happened. And so even when he's here by himself making himself some tea, he's having this conversation between his fallen brothers, or the ghost of the other Turtles, and it's just a really nice back and forth, and I think it just shows kind of the weight that Mikey's carrying with him. And also we kind of see a little sneak peek of exactly what his mission is, or you know, how far he's willing to go for that mission. And then it kind of flashes back to what Raph is doing in the flashback, going after Karai, which this section of fighting is so cool. I love how bloody it looks. I mean, it looks like Raph snapped a little bit and he's actually killing Foot Ninja. I don't know if he's really necessarily killing Foot Ninja in these panels. It's kind of hard to tell. You don't really see him like stab Bebe in the head or anything like that. Well, actually, there's a couple panels where like some knives and stuff are going through. But I just love seeing that like that snap in there, because I think something as severe as Splinter dying would totally set Raph over the edge, especially in this moment. And again, like I said, he's just getting no stopping, even with stuff going inside him, arrows and knives and stuff like that. And I do like his fight with Karai. It is very bloody, and it's it's got some definite what would you call it? Some bite to it, I guess you could say, with him stabbing Karai on the arm with his size and stuff like that. And I was looking at this because we do see kind of how Raph dies in the issue, and I think it's great because at first I was a little disappointed because I was like, okay, if Karai ends up being alive, that will suck, because then I feel like it sort of undermines it, because even though Raph, I guess you could say, is maybe not necessarily the most skilled out of the Turtles, I think he's definitely one of the hardest to fight against, maybe, just because he's just going all out for it. But I do think after re-looking at these panels that he was able to kill Karai, which if that's the case, like Raph sacrificed himself to make sure there was no more threat to the foot, at least immediately, I think that just... I think it adds something to his death. It doesn't seem as wasted, at least he got something out of it. So I'm curious to see exactly how much more flashbacks we get and what that necessarily means, since there's such a big loss on both sides at this point, with Splinter being up in the air. What happened to the rest of the Turtles? And because there is kind of alluded that there was sort of a peace treaty between the Foot and the Turtles before this surprise attack. So really interested to see how they're going to divide that up. But we get back to the present day and kind of Mikey and April catching up a bit, because they haven't seen each other since that night, apparently, and they thought both of each other were dead. So you got some nice dialogue there. I think it definitely shows just how much they've been through. But this is where we get the confirmation of Casey, but not the Casey you may think. It's actually the daughter of April and Casey, which is named Casey Marie Jones. So, there you go. You got that kind of like fake out type deal for multiple fronts. But I think we kind of said that right in the first issue that, who else could this girl be besides probably Casey and April's daughter? So, I mean, I guess there was a few other ones that could have been out there, but I think that's the one that made the most sense. So not necessarily a big surprise in terms of the daughter, but I do like how the daughter's role is in this first meeting between Michelangelo and daughter Casey. I think it has maybe one of the most hard-hitting lines of the whole issue, and that is when she's like, you're supposed to be the funny one, right? And I think just... after already getting a glimpse of how over the edge everything that Michelangelo's gone through has drawn him towards, to the point where he was about to commit suicide at the end of the first issue. It's like, I think that's the farthest from a descriptive factor of him any longer. So I think that's just maybe just another dagger in the shell of having that reminder, but also in this issue, it's very brief, but we do get a look at, I think, the new Iroko, right, is supposed to be Hiruto or something like that. I think that's the name, if I remember right. Yes, Hiruto. And we get to see just how ruthless he is. I think he lives up to the Shredder name, or at least the Shredder bloodline, because he seems like he can handle himself in a fight, which might lead to a very cool showdown. Action heavy, at least, which I expect nothing less from the leader of the Foot, and especially since they don't have the OG Shredder in there, they have to build this up. So I'm glad that they're able to show that he's just not like a Karai necessarily, where she's part of the bloodline, but she's on no level the same skill level as the Shredder was. So I'm glad that they're showing that her son is actually even a bigger threat than she was. But we get a little glimpse of what story might come for leading to Michelangelo's plots to take down the Foot once and for all, with Casey mentioning that her and April are part of a resistance, and that they will tell about that more in time once he heals a little bit faster. But there is a nice little, I guess you could call, segue from Casey and Michelangelo kind of for the first time getting interacted with one another into segueing to just what exactly Michelangelo has been up to in all this time. Why hasn't he been able to contact April before then? And we get to know that he kind of fled the city, stayed in the mountains, and with the help of Splinter's journal was able to find some answers for himself, and also find the purpose of training and mastering all forms of martial arts. So, or I guess mastering in each weapon field as well, so he could. I think it's like. There's a line I wanted to quote here, but I can't think of it. But to adapt to every challenge, every form of combat. Yeah. So. I think this is perfect. It's a simple little explanation, but it's just enough that it works great for like the miniseries. I think it doesn't take away from anything or leave any plot holes. It's just nice, simple, and quick. And actually, I think that'll be something that could easily be expounded upon if we get like a TV show adaptation or maybe a movie, like an anime movie. That would be really dope. I hope they do that, just from judging how good the story's been so far. But again, those are something that, like, if they wanted to expand upon it later in something like some other medium, they can. And I just really like the idea of maybe seeing like almost like an old samurai, or like almost like a Western vibe to just having a single aged turtle dealing with maybe a couple skirts in the mountainside. That would be really cool. But anyway, we get to see that Michelangelo is definitely not out of the fight, and that he's going to go even to the links of death to avenge his family. So I think we already knew that by the end of the first issue, or at least in the first issue, but it's just reiterating that, he's found a new resolve to the point where he's not about to end it all. He's going to continue the fight. Even though he lost the battle, he will not lose the war. And at the very end of the issue, we get to see April grabbing what appears to be the Fugitoid's head out of the safe. So I am curious to see exactly what that will have to do with the next issue. But it looks like the next issue teaches maybe the death of Casey, and maybe even some more carnage. I am thinking that there's only 6 parts to the last Ronin, right? So I just hope that it doesn't feel too rushed, but we get something like this. I mean, this was actually more than I was expecting it to go in depth. It was a little bit slower, but I think it was I guess I should say I loved everything in it, even though it was a little bit slower of an issue. I mean, I say that, but the flashback sequences still had some great action in it, and it's hard watching Raph die, man, because he's one of my favorites. But so overall, I really did love this issue. I think it was, I don't know. Like, I think I liked it a little bit more than the first one, to be honest with you, just because we got some flashback, and I think that is some of the most hard-hitting thing for a story setup like this. So, and again, like, because it had some of my favorite elements from issue 1 carried into issue 2 as well, I like that a lot. It even expanded upon that with seeing some of the other characters that are suffering from similar things, which I think the big thing is, like, you see Michelangelo with PTSD. I think we'll see maybe expand upon that April's more depressed than anything from the situation. But I am curious to see exactly if it expands upon the timeline. But I would say we're looking at least maybe 8 or 10 years at the minimum for time that's passed between the flashback scenes and the present day. That's not founded on anything. That's just from just judging by like the way the characters are drawn in their age appearance. But so I'm really curious to see what they're going to do for the next ones. Hopefully the pacing will stay the same, because I always hate when miniseries rush it. It feels like there's so many times that comic miniseries have such cool ideas, and like it's really done well. It's just the fact that it's so short that they're not able to expand upon it to its full potential. And I really hope that this one will have a satisfying look back when we have all of the issues together, and hopefully it doesn't feel rushed and just kind of, you know, like taking some great ideas and throwing it to the wayside just because we want like a shorter series. So, but so far, I'm going to give this a F.F.A. It knocked my socks off. I really did enjoy it. I'm curious to see, I think we all know where it will probably end up, but I think unraveling the mystery of what led to the point is probably the thing I'm most hyped for. Although I do think some of the present day action sequences will be pretty fire, because the art in this is really dope. I think it's even, I mean, the art in the IDW run of like the ongoing series that we cover on the channel as well, that has great art in it as well, but I think the last Ronin one might be my favorite if I had to pick between them. But anyway, guys, that will conclude this video. Hopefully it wasn't too all around over the place. I feel like we've been so gone, if I can even talk. It's been so long since we've been doing stuff on the channel that I feel out of my element again. But, you know, we'll come back. We'll hopefully be more consistent so we don't have that much bumpy road when we're coming to do. But I think we're on schedule to have, what, they're every other month, right? So I guess we're looking at May, aren't we? Ooh, May. Well, hopefully it doesn't get pushed back farther than that, but that's still going to be quite a hard wait. But I don't know. At least we have 2 issues to read this time, right? So anyway, guys, I'll let you go. And as always, peace, addicts.